Welcome to Graveyard Shift. During the cold winter months, I've decided to read some obituaries, cause of deaths, mysteries surrounding celebrity deaths, cases of interest, and this kind of thing. As you can see today, we will be studying Edgar Allan Poe, who happens to be one of my favorite authors. Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 19th, 1809, and died October 7th, 1849. He was 40 years old. Edgar Allan Poe created a narrative mystery thriller genre, and more than any other writer deserves credit for elevating short stories from a disrespected anecdotal form to an honorable artistic genre. Both of Edgar's parents died before he was 3, and after being taken into the home of a wealthy Allan family of Richmond, he was baptized Edgar Allan Poe. At 17, he entered the University of Virginia to concentrate on classical languages. But after running up a $2,000 gambling debt that his stepfather refused to cover, Edgar left school and enlisted in the army, eventually landing at West Point. While there, his first book, Tamerlane and Other Poems, was published. And Edgar, uninterested in the cadet future, now that his writing talent had been validated, neglected his responsibilities until he was dismissed for gross neglect of duty. Edgar took up residence in Baltimore with his Aunt Maria Clem and her daughter, Virginia, his first cousin, whom he married in 1836, when she was 13. He became editor of the Southern Literary Messenger, and there published much of his own fiction, most notably Bernice. But beyond his own contributions, his editorial attention was scant, as Edgar's only other focus seemed to be alcohol. He was soon asked to resign. The pattern of Edgar's career now seemed prescribed, and his experience at the Southern Literary Messenger was mirrored at a variety of other publications in Philadelphia and New York over the next decade. Edgar contributed his best flawlessly constructed fiction, including The Fall of the House of Usher and The Tell-Tale Heart, to assortment of literary periodicals. But his endless literary feuding, his alcoholism, and his inability to get along with people irritated employers, ensuring that his various tinctures were invariably short. In 1945, after releasing The Raven, my favorite, to popular acclaim, Edgar was pleased to find he could generate on-the-spot income by reciting the verse to paying audiences. His household financial situation improved to its best level ever. But just as it seemed that Edgar's star might finally be rising, his young wife, Virginia, died in 1847, and Edgar retreated to hard drinking. On a trip to Richmond to New York, from Richmond to New York, Edgar's steamboat made a stop in Baltimore, and 6 days later, in the middle of the day, he was found deliriously ill, laying half conscious in the street by the printer who knew him. He was wearing clothes that probably were not his own, and in a delirious state kept calling for the polar explorer of the day named Reynolds. Taken to a hospital, Edgar drifted in and out of consciousness for the next 4 days until he uttered his final words, "Lord, help my poor soul," as he passed on at the age of 40. The cause of death was presumed to be related to his alcoholism, and his brief obituary reported that he had died of congestion of the brain. Today, however, historians speculate that he may have been suffering from some other condition of which doctors of that day were unaware. As the literary community did not particularly like Edgar, his obituaries weren't very kind, and one stated simply, "We hope he has found his rest, for he needed it." Edgar was buried the next day in an unmarked grave at Baltimore's Westminster Presbyterian Church Cemetery that I hope one day I can visit. Eventually, the literary world came around, and the particular group of admirers organized a drive to purchase a suitable grave monument for the neglected poet. In 1875, Edgar and his wife Virginia, who had been buried in New York, were exhumed and reburied at the prominent site within the Westminster Cemetery. Aunt Maria was buried with them upon her death in 1885, and the struggling family was reunited for eternity. Since 1949, on the night of the anniversary of Edgar's birth, a mysterious stranger known as the Poe Toaster has left a half-empty bottle of cognac and 3 roses at the Poe monument. Wow. Empty bottle of the significance of the cognac is uncertain, and it does not figure in with Poe's work. But it presumed that the 3 roses are for the 3 persons who remains lie there. At Baltimore's Poe House and Museum, several of the bottles of cognac from prior years are on display. To reach the Poe House and Museum, you would have to go to, let's see where the address is, Baltimore. And it is house number 203. The directions for the cemetery are listed. It is off the I-83 in central Baltimore, where you can find the church, the Westminster Presbyterian Church Cemetery. He was a little scoundrel, and I will show you his grave tombstone there. It is. And that, my friends, is the story of Edgar Allan Poe. great author and poet unto his death. Have a nice holiday.